when you pull on that jersey, you represent yourself and your teammates. And a name on the front is a hell of a lot more important than the one on the back. Get that through your head.
And here we go.
And it is no good. He missed it. Are you kidding me? The season can't end like that.
The playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Some goofball in a hat and a red shirt. Now he takes off the shirt. He's running down the middle by the 50. He's at the 30. He's bare-chested and banging his chest. Now he runs the opposite way. He runs to the 50. He runs to the 40. The guy is drunk, but there he goes. The 20. They're chasing him. They're not going to get him. Waving his arms, bare-chested. Somebody stop that man.
Nobody ever tells me anything, so I'm going to try and tell you everything I know about the SFL and what happened in Week 3 for the seemingly most improbable time. In 2 weeks, we've had 2 games, and where the field goal unit wasn't present at the end of the game. It wasn't enough time for them to get on the field. And I know that's storing up a hornet's nest. But let's talk about it, shall we? Let's try and break down what exactly happened, what exactly might be causing it to happen, and why the league gave an explanation for how it should change. All that and more when we talk about Arizona's game, because we've got 11 other games to go through this week. Glad you could hear. I'm your host, Tyler Falk. Thanks for joining me on another edition of NETMA. Welcome to the program. Let's go ahead and kick off tonight's show with the first game that happened on Saturday, this being Mexico City and London, and the only word I could say to describe this contest was infuriating. I've gone on record now about West Coast style offenses, and it looked to me like London was deciding to go back a little bit and get Robert Merrill involved a little bit more in a balanced attack. It was working fantastic throughout the game. They caught Mexico City off guard a couple of times with a couple of Merrill runs. It was working great. And then they decided, just because they were playing with Mexico, that they should probably just air out the football 9 times out of 10. And that is where Johnny Pickler had 2 back-breaking interceptions. And that is exactly what happened. 2 back-breaking interceptions from Johnny Pickler, and the ball game's over. London is just an infuriating football club to watch, in my opinion. London it's a good team. They can play that style of football against teams that are not prepared for them. Mexico City, Ramos, I said it on Friday. Ramos was going to game plan the hell out of that football game, and look at the scoreline. 31-23, your final score. Ramos knew exactly what Johnny Pickler was trying to throw at him, and they pick him off twice and win that football game. No turnovers for Mr. Matt Wilson and company. They played a stellar ball game. Balanced attack in that football game for Phoenix Jones, Ray Bentley, and Matt Wilson, all having fantastic games. 4 touchdown passes from Matt Wilson lead to the Mexico City victory. Just infuriating from London. Don't expect them to be in the top 10 this coming Wednesday. Okay, moving on to game 2, Glue Factory. I don't know how else to put it. That was embarrassing. The scoreline doesn't even reflect how poorly even us here in Louisiana think we played. It was not a good football game at all. Another home team goes down, and something to have noticed. Home teams, I think, one point Hunter Norwood said it was like 13% of games this season have been won by the home team. The away team has played really good. And I don't think that's because of sliders. That's not because of sliders. It's because of game planning. there is no longer a crutch for home teams to fall back on and say, we now have stand at minimum a 65 to 75% chance of winning because we are the home team. Now you must game plan for every single game, and it must be near perfection to come out each and every week and come out with a victory. That is how you must play in this stage of the SFL. You can no longer rely on a play that's going to get you 100 yards a football game, because sooner or later, that one play that may give you 100 yards of football game in previous seasons of the SFL is getting picked off in return for a pick six, or is just getting picked off in general. And four interceptions for JQ, 5 interceptions for Tommy Utah, no touchdowns. Louisiana became a glue factory. Tulsa, congrats on your first win. It was a well-deserved victory for you guys. It was good to see a full team play against us. Douglas Brown had a breakout day of his rookie season. Tulsa deserved it. Tulsa deserved this win. That's all I'm going to say. All right. Moving on to Vancouver and Jacksonville. That football game. Behind the 8 ball. And what I mean by behind the 8 ball is for Jacksonville to have 8 turnovers in that football game. 7 interceptions for Marcus Dunhill. 1 fumbled by Talon Steele. And you cannot give Vancouver any opening. They are a fantastic team, especially on offense. You cannot allow them to have easy drives for them to just waltz into the end zone and get scores. Tom Pepper, 3 touchdowns. Robert Redford, a score over 100 yards in the ground. It was textbook from Tom Pepper for the most part. It was, well, a poor game for the Kings, and they were clearly dispatched by the Vancouver Legion. Moving on to game number 4, and all I got to say is check, please. This one's over. Credit to Fort Worth's ball club for trying to put together a game plan to counter Baltimore. Baltimore is just cruising through this season. I don't think they've had. Again, it's been really easy for them to start off this season. They're on our bye week here in week 4. They're going to come back, and I think that's going to be when they face their toughest challenges for their entire schedule. They're going to come and they're going to play in week 5. They're going to take on Mexico City at home, and they're going to play Lone Star in week 7 in Lone Star. Those are the 2 toughest games, and the way games are going for home teams at the moment, that week 5 game might be probably the best chance for any team to put a crooked number in the loss column for Baltimore. But Baltimore versus Fort Worth, that game was no contest for pretty much the entirety of that football game. Fort Worth, I think, were just too conservative. A lot more running plays than I would have liked, especially late in that football game. But Baltimore, just an incredible team. They've shown it for the last couple seasons and just continues to show why they are the best team and why they're the defending SFL champions. Okay, number 5. Game number 5. This one was for the Birds, and I'm not saying it in a bad way. This one was a spectacular game, both for the Nightwings and the Sparrows. It went to overtime. This reminded me of season 15-16 between these 2 ball clubs, when it was just this close, and when Sioux Falls had their stellar running attack. Julian Tyree had a fantastic ball game. You cannot discredit Tyree's performance. You can't discredit GP Wells' performance. He gets a touchdown on the ground. Tyree throws through 3 touchdowns. Tyree did throw an interception in overtime, but they in turn on the ensuing possession for Denver did pick it off. However, they had to punt it away, and eventually Denver would go on to score the final field goal that would clinch it for the Nightwings. But this was a fun game to watch. Really good game from start to finish. Sioux Falls had a lead. Denver came back, and it was absolutely a fun watch. Go ahead and check out the highlights provided by Victor's Valiant over on the SFL YouTube channel. Fun game to watch. Both teams deserve to win. Cliche, of course. Check that off your cliche bingo cards. But Denver with the overtime victory over Sioux Falls. Great game. Okay, number 6, and say it again. Kevin Say nearly ran for 300 yards against Lone Star. Blew that defense in Lone Star wide open. He had lanes to run through. The offensive line was spectacular. London had no counter for him. DC, my goodness, 3-0 to start season 18. DC on an absolute tear. Lone Star, though, Ace Fennick is a fantastic quarterback. He had a great game. Just one touchdown, or one interception to Declan O'Rourke for DC. But Lone Star is in a good spot. They're 2-1. Both of these teams look like playoff contenders early in the season. Lone Star should hold their heads high with how they played. That's all I got to say. That's just 2 games going back to back on Saturday night were the stars of the show for the SFL on Saturday. 2 great games. Kevin Say with a stellar performance against Lone Star. Moving on to the Sunday slate of games, and we'll start out with Queen City and Houston. In Houston, we finally have liftoff. It took them a while to get going, 2 weeks in fact, but all of a sudden we see Houston's offense roar to life. Brad Jones with his first 3 touchdowns all coming in this football game, 2 receiving, 1 rushing touchdown. That one went for 51 yards. Not for 51 yards. It was a 51-yard scamper, which led to a 3 or 4 yard scamper on the ensuing play, which led to his touchdown. But Brad Jones, they finally unlocked him against Queen City. Dave Burr had a solid day, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. DR Sim finally, a lot of finallys here in this football game, but DR Sim played phenomenal, 177 yards, and the defense, holy cow, the Houston defense, the hungry hyena pack was just pouncing a trio of interceptions for Brady Clark, and a pick 6 for Josh Rowe. The defense was hungry. An all-out stellar performance from Houston. Queen City, I think they're in a little bit of trouble. 2-1 to start off the season. Did have a nice win last week, but I think they're a little unsettled at this point here in the opening stages. Hopefully, Queen City can bounce back. Queen City will have one final game before they go on their first bye. They're going to play Fort Worth at home, and hopefully they can bring Buffalo some added excitement as they go out of January into February and then into their bye week. Okay, moving on to game number 8, and is it just me or does Bryant Dynasty look off? Bryant Dynasty had no touchdowns against St. Louis, only threw for 180 yards, was intercepted once. I don't think he was injured. Someone correct me if I was wrong, but it looked to me he was uncomfortable in the pocket. Atlanta's defense was fantastic. Only 2 sacks on the day for St. Louis. They hold BDG under 75 yards, 71 yards all told on 20 carries. And St. Louis kept hold of that football for an impressive nearly 27 minutes compared to Atlanta. St. Louis controlled that football game in the hive as well. Just a fantastic performance from St. Louis. Only 1 interception for Christian Brown, 2 touchdown passes. He completed over 80% of his passes and over 120 yards on the day for Cairo Martinez. He did pick up 1 receiving touchdown as well. But again, St. Louis came into Atlanta and shocked the hive. I almost wanted to call it backstung because of how good St. Louis played. But when I was looking at how Dynasty was playing, Dynasty looks off to me this season. He hasn't been his usual self. I think Atlanta needs to change something up to get him back on track. All right, game number 9, Charleston versus Portland, and the whale is greater than Ahab. Portland is still in port. They have yet to find a way to win this season. They did make things uncomfortably close in the late goings of that football game, but like I've been saying this entire season, Charleston looks like a better team compared to Portland, and it showed. Charleston went out to that early 20-0 lead. All of a sudden, Portland starts to come back a little bit. They tack on 17 points. Charleston kicks a field goal up by 6. Just Portland unable to find the necessary business. And OJ Bruin, a little turnover happy, 4 interceptions, was sacked 5 times. Charleston's defense completely dismantled their offensive line with those 5 sacks. Ezekiel Love was slow to get going, did have a 26-yard scamper and 84 yards. But it just seemed to me that Charleston just had the better of Portland all game long. Portland needs to change something up. They still look like a team that has yet to become a playoff contender here in the SFL. Something needs to change. Again, maybe Art Vanderlei knew a lot more what he was doing, and it's going to take a little bit more time for Portland's new coaches to get acclimated to the system, because right now Portland is definitely on the outside looking in, and when it comes to very early playoff implications. Okay, number 10, game number 10, Carolina and Florida, and all I can say for Carolina is pain. They are the hard luck kids here in the SFL. 3 injuries: Logan Jack, Heath McDaniel Jr., and Hot 3 Hanzo. So both the running back and fullback leave the game, and one of their best wide receivers out in that football game. Carolina played fantastic in their defense. It looked like Carolina was going to make a game of it. If those injuries hadn't happened, I think the scoreline would be much closer. But Florida, with a lot of Carolina Skyhawk team members, having to take that step up for guys that are way better way better than those backups. It showed, and unfortunately for Carolina, they fall on the road to Florida. Florida will be grateful with this victory. 3 touchdowns for Rod Cochran, near 100 all-purpose yards for Charlie Boletsky. Defense played well, 4 interceptions, 1 pick six for Evan Carroll. But again, when you're down your star players, it hurts, and with 3 of them, it hurts even more, because Carolina is a good football team. This scoreline does not reflect how good Carolina is this season. So take this loss with a grain of salt if you're ever playing Carolina this season. Moving on, San Diego versus Los Angeles, and San Diego was slinging silver. 4 touchdown passes for the rookie Scar Patterson. Did throw it away 3 times to the opposition, but Jalen Wells had himself a day, 135 yards on the ground, one reception. But this real story of the football game could well and truly be the wide receiving duo of Liam Hammer and Gunnar Lewis. Gunnar Lewis comes from Sioux Falls, having himself an okay season. This season, however, he has been undeniably head and shoulders above what he was in Sioux Falls. An incredible performance from both Hammer and Lewis. 2 touchdowns apiece. Hammer with over 150 yards. Los Angeles could not stop the air attack. Again, did have 3 interceptions, but could not stop the air attack with 347 yards to Scar Patterson's credit. Sully Richardson could not going until late on that football game. The defense for San Diego played lights out, forcing 4 turnovers. Richardson did have 1 touchdown in #garbage time. But all in all, the Mavericks, they're a scary bunch with their new additions in the wide receiving core. Watch out for the Mavs. And finally, what I think a lot of you have been waiting for, and one thing, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this game more than most, but Las Vegas and Arizona, it was not time that killed Arizona. This was a self-inflicted L for Arizona, and here's why I'm going to tell you why. A team that gives up a pick 6 and gives up a interception, a turnover, within a minute and a half of regulation is destined to is historically speaking and in probability speaking, not destined to win football games. Arizona had 3 turnovers. Las Vegas won the turnover battle. They only turned over the ball once. They converted more times on 3rd down. Arizona converted 44% of their 3rd downs. They were 4 of 9. Las Vegas 7 of 12. Arizona definitely had more 1st downs, about 9 all total more than Las Vegas, but they couldn't convert on 3rd down. Las Vegas's defense was stingy, as they usually are. Arizona was down by 13 points at one point. Or, excuse me, 11 points. Yeah, 13 points. They'd have that botched punt snap, which did end up being, was that I think that was Carolina's football game. I'm getting the two games mixed up, but they did come up with the safety. They did sack Joseph Green in the end zone for a safety, which forced it 20-9. But Arizona had to make a comeback. They were down. They were behind. This is not a glitch in the matrix. Yes, the end of the football game can be explained, and I'll explain that here in a little bit. But do not credit the entirety of the loss because of what happened at the end of the football game in the dying embers of the game. This was a self-inflicted loss, and I was a little peeved. I'm going to say I was a little peeved because when I saw, and this is all due respect to Cliff Allen and everyone who makes social media contact, but for Cliff Allen to say, for the official team to say, hashtag no comment when you put out a social media post, I think is a immense discredit to the organization and to the team in Arizona because of how hard Eddie Gage has worked. I think there was I know you're pissed off. I know a lot of people in the league are pissed off that it's happened twice in a row now in something that's only happened about 0.02% of games here in the league. But if we're trying to make a professional product, give at least some recognition that it wasn't just because of the time management, the clock management at the end of the football game. There was clearly more to it than a mistake in the programming. I'll get off my soapbox on that matter, but I think hashtag no comment is not professional, in my opinion. With all due respect, it's just not professional. And one final thing about this game. I was looking through general chat, and a lot of people, again, of course, upset, rightfully so, in a certain way. I did see one post from a certain member of the Glory, Greg Soto, and it's had to do with the comments made by the league officially on the chat after the game. And the question was posed, that way I can actually bring it up. The question was posed, let's see, because I had it copied here somewhere. The question was posed, does this stuff happen? Did this stuff happen before Legends Bowl, before the change in the league in season 16? And yes. And to answer that question, yes, there was changes. This has happened twice before the league has went to Legends settings. And he was upset with the response made by the league, and the league, quote, said, make a new game. And here is why that, I think, needs to be backtracked, and why I think, that's the correct response from the league, in all case and purpose. Coming from a computer background, I have a little bit of experience with working with programming, all that kind of fun stuff. But me and a buddy of mine from work, we're looking deeper into all pro football, and looking at the graphics and looking at a bunch of things. And one thing we found is we know we have the editor, quote unquote editor, which allows us to make rosters, change ability scores, all that kind of fun stuff, right? What it doesn't do is allow us to change the AI or change any part of the game's official programming because of one simple thing, that the game is based off of on the consoles that it was made for. So taking a step back and trying to unlayer it, even further, is the game runs off of, Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 originally. Both those, or at least the Xbox version, to my knowledge, is based on a Windows 2000 operating system. It's all consoles are basically dumbed down computers. The problem with the Xbox 360 version of the game, and more than likely the problem with the PlayStation 3 version of the game, is those operating systems are not released to the general public. So in order for us to edit the game physically and change something with the AI, change what we call in the business a pointer, which would tell the AI to, hey, we got to hurry up and spike the ball so we can get a field goal off. That's not there. That's not there in the programming. In order for us to do that, we would have to reprogram the game disc itself. We would have to rewrite the programming for the entire game in order for us to get that going, which in turn would be creating a new game. That is where the league stands. That's why the league has been trying so hard. I know Cam has been working so hard behind the scenes to try and get something to work. They tried doing it with Maximum Football. Sadly, that game is no longer in operation. That studio is no longer in operation. Canucks Studio is no longer in operation. But that is why we're trying to, quote unquote, make a new game, is because the time, the effort, the logistics to recreate All Pro Football 2K8 would be a ginormous undertaking for one or even two individuals. 2K was made, of course, by 2K Sports, and 2K Sports is a gigantic company and was at the time of the release of 2K All Pro Football 2K8. So I understand a lot of people are upset, and some people may be upset with the league's comments on hashtag make a new game, but that is the only way this error gets fixed. That's the only error. That's the only thing in the best simulation football game out there. That's the only way this problem gets fixed. Love to know your comments. Let me know in the NETMA server Discord, link to which is down below in the show questions channel, or just in the lounge, or hit me up in a direct message on Discord. But I think that's just about going to do it. We talked about a lot today, recapped the entire week of action, and we got more stuff coming tomorrow. We got a special event coming up tomorrow. I'm calling it the Quarter Season Festival. I'm going to give out a couple of awards to a few players and teams. So through 3 games, so hope you guys turn to that. But until then, everybody, we'll see you tomorrow. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night.